Coming up on this episode of The Coder's Couch.
If they didn't meet before the wedding, there was going to be tension. It could have been a very, very, very different day. Strong-willed bridesmaids.
Are they a good idea or a recipe for disaster?
I would never.
What are your thoughts on having a no-kids wedding? It's becoming more common. It's becoming more common, but it can create tension between generations. So how do you handle that?
We did this.
The
only kids that were at our wedding were our niece and nephew.
Who were the flower girl and the ring bearer. And did we actually really do that intentionally, or was it more it just so happened that?
No, I did this intentionally.
Okay.
And the only exceptions that I made were for friends and family who had newborns. Their babies had to be with them. Mm-hmm. And I think we ended up having two of our couple friends who brought their babies, and everybody else made accommodations for who was going to watch their child or, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then it was just our niece and our nephew who were the only kids. Like once the reception hit, they were the only two kids running around.
Right. I know we had guests on the guest list, like couples who had young kids, like kids in elementary school and middle school and things like that. And I don't know if we did really anything specific aside from maybe just like on the invitation. It was just very clearly like it was not like Mr. and Mrs. and we it was just Mr. and Mrs. Mm-hmm. And like that's it. And then on the RSVP it was just the husband and wife.
Yep.
And so we didn't give them a choice.
Yeah. There were some friends and family that I specifically reached out to because I had that trust and that bond with them to reach out to them and say, hey,
we love your kiddos.
I would love you guys to be there. I love your family. But I almost went about it like, we want you guys to enjoy this night out. Take a date night or, whatever it might be.
This can be for you too.
Yeah. And I think we had on our questions page, I put that on there too. There was a question that said, can we bring our kids? And I just framed it in a way that said, we love your kids, but we want this to be a night for you as much as it is, for us. Like we don't want, I don't know, if you have like a toddler and a 4-year-old or something, and they're just constantly running around and one parent is going one way and then the other parent's going the other way, like you're split and divided the whole night. Like we wanted them to spend the night together, enjoying their time, dancing, laughing, catching up with friends that they don't get to see very often. And so I think just being very intentional in our experience, I think it did end up being a good experience. I didn't have anybody push back and text me like, how dare you not allow my kids to come? Everyone was very understanding. And we did have some families who they weren't able to come because they either weren't able to find someone to watch their kids or, they didn't want to leave their kids. And so you are going to run into that too. If you decide to have a no-kid wedding, there will be probably a few more people who say, sorry, I can't come than otherwise. But it is doable. And I
thought it was great.
I loved it.
I mean, like, I enjoy having kids around too, but I thought it was nice. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really have strong opinions on it. I kind of deferred to you on that one. Mm-hmm. But I thought it worked out really well. And so I don't know what kind of potential additional chaos there could have been with a lot of kids running around. Yep. But I guess I'm glad that there wasn't.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think a big, lavish wedding is better, or do you prefer something more intimate, and why? Intimate. That's my immediate answer, and I've said it. I think it just goes back to what I've said already of like, what's more important, the day or the marriage?
Yeah.
And it's just, I think here, I'll look this up. According to Zola, the average cost of a wedding in the U.S. in 2025 is projected to be around $36,000. That is insane.
Dude.
So, man, I think, I mean, this goes down to your values and what you cherish and think is really important. But for us, it was not a lavish wedding day. If I had $36,000 to spend, that would have been instead, like if we had, let's say we had that in the bank account. That would have been the wedding and then like going toward a down payment on a house, basically. Like, I think, again, investing in the marriage rather than just a single day that's going to be here and gone. And like you took a while to even remember what was going on because you were just so, your mind was so like just buzzing with what about this? And is this going to go right? And is that going to fail? And like all that, like you were trying to attend to all the details that you hardly even remembered the day for like months afterward. And then it was starting to come back. And so that is not the kind of day you want to spend $36,000 or more on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think we had a pretty intimate-ish wedding. I guess according to other people, when I told other people, you know, how many people we invited, everybody was like, whoa, that's a huge wedding. But it felt small-ish for us. And so it still felt intimate, but also it still felt chaotic. And so I think the more that I look back on our wedding, I think this is why I go back to this portion as well, is I would have loved to get married just like you and me and our closest people. And then had the bigger, like, everybody that we love and know from different states and different walks of life come celebrate us. Because, I don't know, we had less than 200 people at our wedding. I think we had, like, 140 or 150. And for me, I guess that was small. I know that there's definitely smaller weddings, but we have big families. And so I think I would definitely lean intimate over something huge and lavish and like invite hundreds and hundreds of people and have this massive venue and pay all this money. Like, we did pretty much everything ourselves and made sacrifices to have the very specific people there that we wanted to have there. And so intimate for sure. 36, is that what you said? 36,000?
36,000.
I would never.
Yeah, neither would I. That's like a new car. I mean, that's like 2 new cars if you pick the right cars.
Right.
But I think that maybe, correct me if I'm wrong and if I'm just crazy, maybe a good way to think about it is if you took the approach of getting married and then throwing a party afterward. Think of the amount of money you're spending on your wedding would be equivalent to like what you're spending on that party. Would you throw a $36,000 party just to celebrate you're getting married? Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yep.
But if you had already gotten married and you just wanted a nice reception, what would you spend on that? And of course, it's maybe a little different because there probably is something to be said about investing in the venue and the photographer,
right,
and the food.
Yep.
Those are the biggest expenses, I think. But like, just keep that in mind. Essentially, what you're doing is, if you like wedding ceremony aside, you're just having a big party.
Yeah.
How much do you want to spend on that party? And so, for us, that was not a ton of money. We were also committed to paying in cash, and so that limited us as well because we didn't want to be paying for one day for months to come. And so we did put that constraint on ourselves. So that is something to keep in mind. The next question, how do you feel about bachelor and bachelorette parties? Do you think they're essential or just a fun tradition?
Just a fun tradition. I don't think you need them. I know a lot of people who they don't take a bachelor or a bachelorette trip and they take the intentional time the day before their wedding to spend as a group. So I guess technically you could consider that a bachelor or bachelorette party, but it's more like the day before the wedding, we're getting everybody together. We're just going to have a nice meal. We're going to hang out. We're going to get to know each other and finish any final touches for the wedding. And then we're going to go get married tomorrow. So I think that it is more of just a fun thing. Like, mine definitely was. I wanted to go somewhere fun that I loved, that was different from my everyday life. And I wanted my bridesmaids to come and be part of that and celebrate me. I like being celebrated. And so, of course, I'm going to take the opportunity to be celebrated, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, definitely for me, not essential. Also, like, I didn't care about tradition at all. I just thought it was a fun thing to do. A big contributing factor was the fact that my best man had never met any of the other 4 of my groomsmen. And so this was a good way for everybody to just, like, us as guys, then when we went on a bachelor party, which happened to be, I think, the July before. So we got married in October. So the July before. So a couple months before, we just went on this trip out to Wisconsin, and it was fantastic. But the favorite parts for me of that trip were actually waking up early and sitting on the deck of this cabin that we had rented and spending time in the Word and reading my book. And then a couple of those mornings, my best man also got up early and came out and joined me. And then we had conversation, and it was like amazing. And then the evenings where we went from the cabin into town to some of the breweries and distilleries and whatnot, and like got some drinks, had some food, hung out, just like guys hanging out. And then we went back to the cabin and talked late into the night, and like everybody got to know each other, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
That was just the fun that I wanted to have, and for everybody to like get to know each other a little bit so that we could see, hey, these are like some of the 5 most significant men in my life. And now you have a chance to see what kind of role you've all played to me.
Yeah. And I think for me too, I also wanted my bridesmaids to meet before the day of, primarily because I had 5 bridesmaids, and 4 of them are very, very incredibly similar. And I knew from the beginning, just based on their personalities and just knowing them, that if they didn't meet before the wedding, there was going to be tension. Just getting to know someone for the first time. So part of my bachelorette trip too was, hey, I want to get some of this tension out of the way, which we did. I want to get some of this out of the way so that when we get to the wedding day, it's not a surprise for anybody, and we can all just enjoy the day and enjoy being with each other and put our differences aside just for a moment, because I had some pretty strong-willed bridesmaids who, if they hadn't met until the day before the wedding, it could have been a very, very, very different day.
Yeah. And our next question is, what about conjoined bachelor and bachelorette parties? Are they a good idea or a recipe for disaster? And I just think that depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So like when you mentioned just like getting together for a meal and everybody gets to hang out, like that's what we did. We had it would be the rehearsal dinner, I guess. Yep. And we just got to hang out and talk to each other, get to know each other a little bit. And then we, went to our separate, the guys went to where the guys were staying and the girls went to where the girls were staying. And then we just called it a night. So if it's something low key like that, I'm all in favor. But if it's like, let's rent a party bus and then go hit every bar in town, and that's probably going to get out of hand. But I don't know. You do you. Yeah.
I thought having our parties together for like the rehearsal dinner was good. It gave people a chance to get to know each other, and there was laughing and there was talking, and like it ended up being really great. Just, sharing a meal together, being in someone's house and just hanging out with no expectations, really. I think I love the idea of conjoined parties, but I also think there's something to say too about the idea of separate parties, is to go and have one final hurrah with your people and not have to worry about, I felt like if we did like a combined trip, it would have been hard, I think, to do the things that both of us wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like we just naturally are a little different. Like you guys went out to
I got
like
to
a
shoot
cabin.
A freaking machine gun at the shooting range.
Yeah, you guys went and did that stuff, and I would not have wanted to do it. Whereas we went shopping, and we walked around like Breckenridge, and we took cutesy photos, and we did all this stuff. And I just think there's something to be said too about like men and women are different, right? And if you and your future spouse have a lot of similar things in common and you want to have a combined one, by all means, yeah. I love the idea of it, but
I think more accurately, our parties just had very, very separate and like different interests. And
it would have been a disaster.
Would have enjoyed the time being spent separately.
Yes.
And so
100%.
Yeah. You weigh that one for yourself. If your party seems like they would, you know, if everybody wants to like get a party bus and go hit every bar in town, then, I don't know, that could be fun.
Yeah.
But if you want to have your separate parties because that's going to be the most enjoyable for everybody.
Yeah.
I think for your party members that probably feels like, hey, I still get a little bit of like one-on-one time almost, or really small group time with like my close friend, and maybe my best friend or my sister or brother or whoever it is before they go start their new marriage with their spouse. And, you know, I never see them again.
Yeah.
And so that's really special for the party members too.
Yep, for sure.
All right. What was your favorite part of being engaged? And what made that time special for you?
None of it. Hated it. No, just kidding.
My favorite part of being engaged, I think there was just having been dating and engaged once before, then the second time where we dated and were engaged again. I think being engaged that second time, there was just some additional like officiality to it where we could tell our families, no, this is happening and we're getting married. And so nobody is allowed to question it, but nobody's really going to question it. And so it was nice to have, I think there's some stability there. I think, yeah, looking forward to then the marriage of like, it maybe felt like, whew, okay, there's all this, it is more certain now, and we get to be excited for the future now. And all of the hard work that we put in throughout our relationship is like we're going to just enjoy being husband and wife.
Oh, you're so sweet. My answer is so different from yours.
That's fine.
My favorite part was the creative aspect of it. I feel like I've had this written scrapbook with
Pinterest like in your brain,
pictures and ideas and themes and everything in my brain for years and years and years. And I finally got to just like take all of it out and start putting all the pieces together. And that was my favorite thing. Like I didn't spend any time really whatsoever brainstorming, oh gosh, okay, we're engaged. What kind of flowers do I want? What do I want centerpieces to look like? What do I want my colors to be? What do I want this? Like I had most of that pretty much finalized in my head. And so to be able to actually take that out and start putting stuff together and being creative was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. And then it was also just fun getting to see like the final product of everything, of like at the wedding, in the photos, all laid out. Like it just like made me so giddy and so happy just planning. I like planning. So naturally, yeah, that would be my favorite. And my rock. I mean, my ring. I still look at my ring every day and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the prettiest thing I've ever seen in my life. So I liked the planning. And then while I was planning, I would get distracted and be like, oh, I love my ring.
All that money I invested in Chuck E. Cheese tokens to get you that
paid
ring
off.
Is so worth it.
I so appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, looking back, what did you do or wish you had done to prepare for marriage beyond the wedding day itself? Great question. We can start one at a time. What did we do? What did you do individually, and what did we do together?
I don't know. I have short-term memory loss and long-term. I don't remember anything.
I just don't remember anything.
I think specifically in the engagement process or in the engagement time, I wanted to be really intentional about what we were communicating about. Basically, like if someone told me something that pertained to our relationship, or somebody told me something about you, I immediately wanted to have a conversation with you to be like, here's what I heard, or here's what so-and-so told me, or let's have a conversation about this. Because I knew that once we like started our own family and got married, that there were still going to be all these things flooding in that we had to decide together. we had to make the decision on, we had to talk about, we have to be in constant communication about everything. And so that was something that I wanted to be intentional about starting off. Plus, it just like helped build trust and respect for what we were stepping into. Also, just having conversations with people who were already married. I know we did this together. That was something that we did even in our first engagement. When we were in college, we sat down with a number of couples and that were already married and asked them a whole bunch of questions and how can we prepare and what do you wish you would have done differently and what advice do you have for us and like what's the best part about being married and all these things just to get our minds wrapped around like what marriage actually means and looks like. But also doing that individually, reaching out to the people who are closest in my life who are married and asking them questions for me. It more so looked like I was having coffee with my girlfriends who are married or people in my family who are married, not necessarily having the conversation with both the husband and wife, but just getting the wife's perspective on what was it like before you got married? What is it like now that you're married? What are some things that I should expect, especially as someone who is in the faith and rooted in, you know, what Christ has for me and for our marriage? Like, what should I expect from that? And just having different conversations like that. And then reading books, reading blog posts, reading, you know, listening to podcasts or sermons on marriage and just preparing my heart in that way of I'm someone who likes to get all the information I can and then make my decisions from there rather than just get little pieces here and there and go with the flow. I don't really love that. And so I felt like I was just taking in everything that I could and then deciding from there, like, okay, I love this and I want to apply that to my marriage. Or, oh, wow, I didn't know that a man thinks that way. That's really good to know. Okay, I will keep that in mind for when I get married. And even starting to practice some of those things in engagement too, like really understanding your partner. And that's huge, by the way. If you don't know and understand your partner, I would start there. Because I think once you're in it, once you're married, you just like reveal a whole different layer. And if you don't know even some of the most basic things of like how they communicate or how do you know if they're upset and don't want to talk to you right now, or like how can you tell if your partner just needs space, or, you know, some of those things, if you can figure those out and learn those early on in the engagement period, or even sooner, then I think that really sets you up too for really knowing and loving your spouse well beyond just the marriage day, the wedding day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that contributes to the I know I can choose you day after day after day.
Yeah.
Yep. I think I echo the books because I'm a big reader, and especially in the area of like communication, marriage, relationships, I just devour all the books I can get my hands on about those topics. I think something that would have made a big difference would be thinking about the choices you make now. If you hope to get married, for anybody listening, if you hope to get married, know that the choices you make now are going to impact your marriage in like every area of your life. I'm thinking specifically of right now, like finances and debt versus other financial habits, because there are a number of couples that I know of who were forced to put off things like buying a house and traveling and having kids and all of these amazing things because they wanted to pay off their debts before doing some of those things, which I think is really admirable and great. So if that's one of your values, then do what you can to eliminate your debts. Like in this example specifically, do what you can to eliminate your debts before you get married so that you don't have that baggage coming into marriage. We have enough probably emotional baggage and family baggage and other kinds of baggage as it is. And so if you can avoid the financial stuff as well, then that is a good move. Mm-hmm. So I think being more prepared, I'm thinking like for myself, I had student loans. And so that would have led to me picking a different college and all of that kind of just knowing. And that would have taken like foresight back at the age of 18.
Right. That, yeah.
You know, I can't go back and change that decision now. So I'm going to just make the best decision I can going forward. But having that insight would have been really good. And so consider right now, like what things do you have control over right now that you know will impact your marriage? Because there are going to be things that will impact your marriage. So I think tangibly along the lines of like sitting down with people, married couples, and asking them, hey, what can I expect about marriage? What are some hard things about marriage, and what are some great things about marriage? And what does faith as a newlywed couple look like? Along with things like that, I think I would recommend, like, for a woman, find an older woman who is married and that you really respect, and ask or kind of just continue, like, frequently buy her coffee, and then take her out to coffee or to eat or something, and like pick her brain, but form kind of a mentorship-ish kind of relationship, and then be asking these questions. Have somebody who can walk alongside you in this stage of life and prepare you, at least better than you would be otherwise, for the next season of life that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
And then for the man, do the same thing with an older man that you respect and trust. Find people who have the kind of marriage that you want, especially.
Yeah.
And then get those kind of people around you as well. Even like my best friend, so my best man and his wife, like I just love being around them because it is so obvious in like literally every way, in everything, just the offhand comments and the tiny little compliments and everything. Like, they just cherish each other so well, and they love each other and are all about building each other up and creating unity in their marriage. And so it's just such a delight to be around them and to watch them live like that. And so, like, that's the kind of marriage I want to emulate. So I'm definitely keeping him close.
Yeah.
Find those people now. If you don't have them, go find them. If you have them, then really invest in those relationships and spend time with those people and ask good questions.
Yeah, similar to that. I think another thing that really allowed us and me to prepare for how our marriage is now is we spent 6 years, collectively, 6 years, really getting to know each other, like being best friends and sharing life together and going through experiences together, and the highs and the lows and all those different things. I think definitely I'm such a huge advocate of being friends and best friends before jumping into a relationship. And if you don't have 6 years to get to know your significant other, then be asking the best questions you can be asking. Like, what truly do you want to know and learn about your spouse so that you can best prepare for actually being married? Just asking good questions.
Yeah.
And being intentional about really learning your person.
I think what motivated my questions during our dating and engagement period was, there is nothing about you that I'm not willing to marry. And so I should take some time to consider, are there some areas that would keep me from marrying you? And then I should probably ask about those things. Like, find out your deal breakers, and
your non-negotiables,
and then ask about those things. Surprise, surprise. You can like, there's a lot more than you think that can be worked through in marriage, but then it's a lot of like values issues that are really going to undermine a healthy marriage.
Yeah. And my last thought, I promise this is my last thought on this one. My last thought for preparing for marriage is working on you. I think that was huge for us, especially when we broke off our engagement the first time. It really put into perspective that I'm not working on myself for someone. I'm working on myself for me. And if I happen to get married someday, I want to make sure that I'm the best version of myself. And I'm the most prepared for the things that I can best control and be prepared for. Because if you put all of it into, well, I'm gonna focus on who I am for this person, and then you end up not being with that person, there's kind of like, you lose your identity and who you are. And so just being really firm in that, I found that to be so important when we ended our engagement the first time. Like, I think we're better off for it. I didn't have this expectation of, I'm going to be this kind of person so that Jason likes me and he wants me. It was, I'm going to be this kind of person because I want to love that person. I want to know that person. And I want to be that person that I am. I want to be proud to share that with whoever I do end up marrying. And I think that's a really big deal.
Yeah, I think my final answer to this question, if I could sum up everything that I said at least, and I think a good way of summarizing some of what you said was, if you can be a person who seeks wisdom from others, both in books, podcasts, conversations with people that you trust, you need to do that. And then if you can be somebody who is teachable, and humble and willing to learn new things and admit when you're wrong, then I think that's the recipe for success in marriage. More than any other like single piece of advice is, if you seek wisdom for the new and unexpected things, which you've probably never been married before. And so it'd be good to seek wisdom on how to have a good marriage. And then if you are teachable, and remain teachable throughout your marriage, so that your spouse can correct you if necessary, so that other people can correct you if necessary, so that for people of faith, so that God can correct you as necessary, because that will be necessary, then you're going to be really well off, I think.
You're going to be just fine.
Going to be just fine, because there are going to be things that come up that you couldn't anticipate and couldn't predict, and no amount of getting coffee with couples around you could have ever prepared you for. But if you're teachable and you're humble and you're seeking wisdom, you're going to be able to navigate that season. Next time on the Coder's Couch, because you're worth somebody actually committing for a lifetime. Engagement can be really stressful.
Blah, 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 blah.
Just don't. Yep.
Sex. Oh, I mean, yeah.